Let's take it from the top. Wow. Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us as we come back from an adequate beginning. Yes, I had muted my mic as we were playing the theme. Welcome. We are here to do the Pride of Detroit preview, per-view series, and I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. If you were watching live, I did just start about a good 30 seconds with myself muted, so adequate is in full effect, which is fine because I also didn't have the screen changed to say week 4 at the bottom, so you know what? We roll. For whatever reason, the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know how this happened, but they seem to be in the NFC North, considering that this game seems to happen every damn year. And once again, the Lions are tasked with taking on Geno Smith and a Seattle front seven that's really feeling itself right now. So this will be an interesting one. Again, I'm Chris Perfett, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Let's bring in the crew. Brandon Knapp is back with us at BKnapp Blogs. Hello, Brandon.
Hey, how's it going?
We are doing great and adequate. Fantastic. And Jerry Mallory is back with us for a second week here at Jerry Mallory NFL. Always good to have Jerry back in the saddle. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, man? This is 2 in a row. I'm going after Cal Ripken. Look out.
Well, we'll see. This is probably next week's going to be a bye week, and then I will probably be on the road for the week after. So it'll be a few weeks before we have a purview back. But we do have this one staring us down. And as always, we start with what has been and what shall be for the Detroit Lions, catching up on what happened last week as the Lions got back to the winning ways against the Arizona Cardinals. And it was a very good victory. It was a very fun victory, a little bit of a heart attack in places. The offense really needing still some time to adjust, but defense playing at a top 10 level right now. Any other notes we have to go over before we get to the injuries? Brandon, Jerry?
No, it's just a good team win. We needed it, after coming off that loss. I don't think the Lions have lost 2 in a row in 2 years, I think I saw, which was crazy. So good thing we got that win, and we got a tough one coming up here.
We do, because the Seattle Seahawks are 3-0. And they are a very strong team right now. I think there are some questions as to who they have played, and I was discussing it a little bit with the Seahawks Forever podcast. I'm not quite sure. We'll talk a little bit about who they have played and whether or not that is relevant to this conversation, but let's start with Lions injuries. Marcus Davenport is done for the year, unfortunately, for the Detroit Lions, right as the Lions kind of get a game where they have everyone in that front seven healthy and, playing at a particular level. Losing Davenport definitely, I think, changes some of the outlook for the Detroit Lions. But let me ask you guys as we look through a few of these key injuries. Brandon, does losing Davenport really change the approach the Lions take? Are they once again struggling to find someone who's going to start opposite of Aiden Hutchinson and help him with the pressure?
I wouldn't really believe so. It does suck losing Davenport. He is a starter on the team, but they have enough depth pieces that they can just do just fine without him. There's no real free agents that are attractive out there. While some trades could be possible, I don't think this team is desperate enough that they think they need another defensive end to make some kind of drastic move. But Josh Pascal's gonna contribute a lot. You could see James Houston. I know Dan Campbell was on the radio earlier this week saying, James Houston, doesn't seem like he'd be in the rotation. He's not in the doghouse, but he's not really up to the level as Pascal and the rest of them. We also have some practice squad pieces that might get called up for a little tryout, see what they can do. Overall, I'm not too worried with the loss of Davenport. We know his injury history. So if you had to believe that, another injury was going to happen, you had to be prepared for that. So I'm sure Jerry has an opinion on that.
Yeah, it definitely hurts. Depth is a good thing for us. Davenport, this was kind of what we worried about, right? When we brought him in. Talent has never been a question. It's been durability. And, sometimes you just wonder like, hey, this person's due to have a healthy year. Maybe it's with us. That's not the case. So like you said, Brandon, everyone moves up. I think Levi can do a little inside outside. So we may see more Levi on the outside now. Like you said, Josh Pascal, everyone moves up. So Wingo's going to get more snaps in the interior. And yeah, it does affect us. We only had one game with all of our starting defensive linemen. Remember, Chris,
Yeah.
we were talking about that last week. Happy that we were going to have everyone: Davenport, Reeder, McNeil, Hutch. So we got one game.
Yeah, and you definitely saw it, especially against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in losing effort, where you finally got Reeder in with Davenport, with Hutch, and what do you have? You have an almost career sack game for Aiden Hutchinson as he goes absolutely ballistic. And you kind of hope for something like this because this is going to be a very interesting one against the Seattle Seahawks, but more pressing than I think Davenport at this point. We did get news here today on Thursday that it looks like the Lions will be without starting center Frank Ragnow going into this game, which has been that is always worrying considering the level Frank plays at with the removal of Jason Kelce from the NFL. I think Frank has probably got an argument for one of the best centers out there in the NFL. He's always been a cheat code when it comes to stopping pressure up the middle, although it was a little suspect last week that we talked about on PODcast with the three-man rush that got home. But it does put the Lions in a bit of a bind without Frank the Tank out there to direct things. And I think operating procedure for the Detroit Lions is going to mean that starting left guard Graham Glasgow moves over to center, and the Lions, you should expect them to play probably Coyote Awosika to at guard in his place. I mean, they could go with someone else for center like Michael Neese, but I am pretty sure that will be the case. Brandon, how did the Lions really manage this line situation, and what is your worry level without Frank on the field?
Well, I want to be honest, Frank hasn't been up to par of what we're normally seeing out of him this year, in my opinion. He's not like he's been flat out horrible, but he just hasn't been as great as he once was. I think it's probably all the injuries starting to take effect on him. And losing him, no matter what, will suck 100%. This offensive line, needs a great center, needs that interior to work really well to get the run game going. So him being gone is definitely going to take a step back. You might see more outside runs behind the tackles because of that. But overall, I would say the worry level is probably about like a 6-7. I know Graham's going to do a great job at center. But when it comes to the guard of Awosika, or if they bring in anybody else for that, that part I'm not too comfortable with. I would worry more about that position overall. It's gonna be a big challenge for Detroit to kind of adjust to that, especially a new center overall. Even if Jared's played with Graham at center before, it's gonna have some changes and some ripple effects, I think.
I'm probably a little higher too. I might be at about a 7 or 8. We talked about this last week, Chris, because Glasgow wasn't playing, Ragnow wasn't playing good, and we kind of saw the effects of Jared Goff struggling, not being able to step into throws. And I think I mentioned he's one of the few guys where I'm not going to say they're irreplaceable, but it's a bigger hit. So, I mentioned Goff, I mentioned Hutch, I mentioned Sewell, Ragnow, St. Brown. I think those 5, when they're out of the lineup, that's the biggest effect. They're probably our 5 best players. And so this one I'm a little worried about. And we pair this, which we'll probably talk about more a little later, we pair this with what Seattle has been doing, how they've been looking with Mike McDonald. It's kind of a bad recipe. So, yeah, I'm a little bit more worried about it. And, with Ragnow, there's been, flirtations of possibly retirement. He's got the nagging. The foot injury, which he said will never really get all the way better. Now you're adding this, is he starting to slow down like Brandon mentioned? Possibly. So I'm a little worried.
I don't think I'm worried terribly about that. He is week to week is the designation. And I think this might just be some rest that he kind of needs, especially since we're coming up on a bye week as well. I have no questions about Frank's toughness. He wants to be out there and he wants to fight for this entire season. What he does after that season is his prerogative. But I think that given Frank is being the gamer that he is, I'm not terribly worried there. I think this is an interesting situation for Awosika. I think I've talked about this before, but the Lions, for all of their interior pieces after their starters, and I think for the tackles as well, it's all developmental guys. They haven't really, it's hard enough to get kind of career backups out there onto a roster for an O-line, But you look at Awasika, you look at Manu, you look at Mahogany, who's out for a while. Sorsdal, like they've been carrying outside of Dan Skipper, all of the guys they are carrying right now are developmental guys. Even Michael Nisu, I mentioned earlier, he is a developmental guy. This is, I believe, his first year in the NFL. So like these are guys who they want to turn into it. And at least the nice thing is that Awasika, he's been around the Lions for a few years now. They've given him reps with all these different teams, and their hope is that he can develop for exactly this kind of situation. And I think this is the real first test for Awasika. And unfortunately for him, it is once again another trial by fire for the young man taking on the Seattle Seahawks. We keep dancing around it, and I swear we're going to get to the Seahawks defensive front. But first, we have one more injury, and that is Sam Laporta. It felt like in the first couple of games, the Lions were really struggling to get Sam Laporta involved in their offensive scheme for pass catching. And last game, it really came on. He's got a low ankle sprain. This is not a terribly worrying injury day to day. I think he will be playing in this game, if I am correct, but he did not practice on Thursday. So it's a little bit of caution. We are kind of delayed a little bit because this is a Monday night game, so we won't get game status probably until later into the weekend. If I had to guess, I would think Laporta is going to play, however, and they're going to be very cautious about this. What say you, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's probably just a day of rest. Probably just give him some time off. Laporta's going to be fine. If he's limited in action, he's limited in action. Brock Wright will be just fine. Parker Hesse might see some more playing time, but I'm not too worried about Sam. He's tough. We saw him last year in the playoffs, playing through what he played through. So overall, compared to Frank, this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, he'll probably play. That's a good point about, when he came back from that injury week 18, I believe, against the Vikings, to end up playing in the playoffs like he did. He's tough, like you all mentioned. He may be hampered, his effectiveness might, show. And there's a potential, just like last game, where he gives it a shot. If it's not working, you'll have to pull him. I do like Brock Wright. He's not as good as, obviously Laporta, but he's serviceable. So yeah, he's going to go out there and give it a shot. Yeah. And there's another potential strategy. I don't know, you have to view this game as important. All games are important, but do you kind of gamble a little bit on reserving some of these guys because we have the bye week next week? Then you get like 2, technically 3 weeks before they have to play a game again, and they're even more likely to be healthy for this long stretch. That's a potential strategy they may look at too, but I don't think the team is in the interest of sitting guys if they can play, though. Yeah,
but I think you're onto something that we could see Sam Laporta on something of a snap count out there just to kind of manage that injury, which, as you say, that is part of a long season, and the Lions have an early bye week. It is starting to work out in their favor given the number of injuries, but at the same time, once you're past that bye, you're in for the long stretch. You don't have another bye. You don't have another break. In fact, it gets even worse late November, where I believe you have to play 3 games in like a really short period of time because of the 2 Thursday games coming off that Sunday one too. That's a lot. This is going to be the challenge for the Detroit Lions, is managing these injuries through this. And to that effect too, you have to see what's going to happen with Brian Branch and concussion protocol and everything there. But we should move on. Let's start talking about the Seattle Seahawks and our view of them. Now, 3-0, they're one of the few scant 3-0 through what I believe has been an absolutely chaotic NFL season so far. That week 3 really changed the outlooks for a lot of teams, and some of those 0-3 teams are really, really hurting. I know some Lions fans really upset at how the Tampa Bay game has gone, and maybe things they look shaky. The Lions still at 2-1 coming into Monday night is still in a much better place. The Seattle Seahawks at 3-0 now have a early lead in the NFC West, but I think the big first off, number one is a incredibly strong defensive front 7 showing. McDonald already, the new head coach, really showing his chops of what made him so good running defenses in Baltimore, which had stymied the Lions in years past when they played Baltimore, and Baltimore shut them down. But I do have a fly in the ointment in that you look at the first 3 games they've played. Week 1, at home against the Denver Broncos. Okay. Week 2, on the road in Foxborough for the New England Patriots, a overtime victory. Okay. Then we finally get a dominant win for them, and that was, once again, at home against the Miami Dolphins, who were down to Skylar Thompson, and at one point, Tim Boyle, our old friend Tim Boyle, Laser Light Show himself, played under center in this game. Long story short, in the words of a country singer, that don't impress me much. So I guess it's trying to figure out, yes, this is an incredibly talented front that they have, and it will be coming at you. And yes, last year, Geno Smith did gash this Lions team in a horrible, horrible way. But so far, I hate to play the strength of schedule argument, but I have to look at their strength of schedule, Brandon, and I have to wonder, I know for a fact the Lions are going to be the best team they've played so far, but I guess the question is, how do I take these performances and really evaluate them given who they've played?
Well, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not really impressed with who Seattle's played at all. I mean, sure, Denver beat Tampa Bay, but this was Bo Nix's first start compared to his third. He's obviously going to learn more throughout the season. He's going to get better. But I don't really have any justification. I'm in the same position as you. Seattle hasn't really impressed me outside of their defensive front. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN, they're all doing well. Kenneth Walker was already banged up. After week 1, he's been out. He's going to probably return this week. Zach Charbonnet's been doing well for him too. But I mean, like you said, beating New England in overtime, not just regulation, overtime, that's not good. And then, they defeated the Tua-less Miami Dolphins, who also, like you said, as well as Skylar Thompson, also got injured. So they're bringing Tim Boyle. And if you're playing Tim Boyle and you lose, that would be embarrassing. You don't want to have that happen. So Seattle, to me, this is 100%. Detroit is the toughest team they're going to play. They're going to be in Ford Field on Monday night. You know how loud that crowd's going to be.
Black jerseys.
They're going to have black jersey debut, the re-debut, I should say. It's going to be a big atmosphere, and Seattle always represents, the 12s. Well, good luck playing the 12s in Detroit, because that 12th man of the crowd is going to be a huge impact in the game, I think.
Yeah, this is their toughest matchup, no doubt about it. Could be their toughest matchup of the year. I mean, we'll see. We have high hopes for the Lions. This is a road game. It's a primetime national TV game. Crowd's going to be crazy. Black and blue, Calvin Johnson. But what I will say is, despite the level of competition not being high, starting off 3-0 does so many wonders for your team, especially a new coaching regime. So everything is new. Everything's being installed, and shout out to Jeremy Reisman. Momentum, you know what I mean? Momentum, cohesiveness, confidence, those little intangible qualities, they're all there no matter who you beat. So that is something to kind of factor in. These guys are coming in feeling themselves. And then you add the fact that with that number 12, we haven't beaten them in 12 years. So there's 0 Lions and 0 Seahawks that were present those 12 years ago. So those things don't completely correlate. But the last 3 years, they've also been successful against us. And a lot of that is overlap. That is Dan Campbell's tenure. That is 2 years, maybe 3, of Geno Smith and Jared Goff. So, do they have some matchup, advantages against us? I don't know. Someone could argue that, we haven't been able to beat them. So although this is their toughest matchup, they got that momentum going. They got some good things on their side. So, it's not going to be a slam dunk for us, that's for sure.
Yeah, looking at their own injuries, right now they've got a few guys who didn't participate in practice on Thursday. Anthony Bradford with a knee injury, Boy Moffitt, which might be a pretty big blow for them if he can't go at linebacker. Same with Jerome Baker, another linebacker. Their biggest issue right now is that they still don't really have. They are down bad at tackles. And I believe they are playing host their Abraham Lucas, I believe, is on their injury, and that was like their starter. And I believe once again this is a game where Aiden Hutchinson can expect to start against probably at best a third string right tackle.
Yeah, because it was Abraham Lucas started the year in PUP, and then they just
Yeah.
put George Fant on IR. So they have their third stringer right now out there, and Hutchinson, he's just had a great month of just playing backup offensive lineman. So just keep it going, stack those good days. Doesn't matter who it's against, so he can build his confidence even more.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the matchups. But again, going back to this defensive front, that's the one thing that hasn't really varnished. Again, we've got a couple of their linebackers on injury report, but so far this year, the pressure they've brought have been very, very good, Jerry. I believe if I look at DVOA, their defensive DVOA early on, which is always hard to judge, but it does put them as the number 2 ranked defensive DVOA at minus 36.4%, which is very efficient. They've been able to get after it, but again, we have to impress that they're not really playing. Like, I know that these are adjusted values, but I'm curious what happens with all of that when it starts to play the Detroit Lions. But granted, the Detroit Lions are going to be without their starting center, so it's a question of what's going to break harder first.
Yep, that's something to factor in. And that front seven is looking good. Like you say, Boye Mafe, he's got that knee. You know, is he going to play? We don't know. But a lot of that is also generated from their secondary. They arguably have the best secondary in the league. They're number 1 in coverage on PFF. Their red zone efficiency is really good. So when you got guys like Reek Woolen and Witherspoon, you know, these guys are lockdown corners, you know, and so a lot of the sacks and the pressures, it's all in unison, but a lot of it is coverage sacks. You know, you're looking down the field and guys just aren't open, and so that opens it up for their lineup. So even if like a Boye Mafe doesn't play, you still have that potential for those coverage sacks. And like you said, we're changing 2 positions with Ragnar being out. So you're weakening center because Glasgow isn't as good a center, although he's the most, you know, adequate.
Right.
Or the guy we would want at center, but you're also weakening the guard spot too. So you're weakening 2 spots. Then that coverage that they have, you know, that's something to factor in. You know, when we're thinking about how this game is going to go. Even if like a Boye Mafe doesn't play, Leonard Williams is on the injury report as well. They can still create pressure with that secondary. You know, not letting guys get open.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks alone, according to Pro Football Reference, have the second most pressures in the NFL at 44. They're right just behind the Minnesota Vikings, who have just been also impressive on the defensive front. And it's mostly with those linebackers. So Boye Mafe and Derek Hall are their top 2. If Mafe's out, that is going to hurt them greatly, I think. But overall, it's going to be a difficult problem, like you were saying, Jerry. You know, you're downgrading center, you're downgrading like guard, so that interior is definitely going to be tested heavily. And if Seattle can get some pressure up front in Goff's face, he could throw an interception, fumble the ball. You don't know what's going to happen, but I think they're going to definitely attack the interior more heavily. You know, they have a good head coach, Mike McDonald, when it comes to defensive schemes. So I know he's going to definitely try and test the line's weaknesses along the offensive line.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back on the Purview, we will talk about offense versus defense, the charge of trying to keep Jared Goff safe under pressure on an offensive line that probably hasn't done very well, and a question of, are the Lions getting well-needed reinforcement and depth at their receiving core, something they really haven't had since the departure of Josh Reynolds? And how do you solve a problem like Geno Smith, or words that you could scroll me back 10 years and I never thought I would say in my life? We will be right back on the Detroit Lions PODcast Purview. Hello, everybody. Hi.
What's up?
Go Tigers. Baseball cats.
Dude.
I was going to start
I'm going tomorrow. I can't wait.
Oh, man. I was about
nice.
to say, I should have just started the podcast with just saying, magic number is 2.
That's it, baby. That's it. It's crazy, man. Like, and those tickets are just skyrocketing by the hour. I had to pull the trigger like at 1 a.m. because
wow,
the ticket prices just keep going up and up. I wish I knew what I knew now. Like 2 months ago, I probably could have got those tickets for $10. You know what I'm saying?
Seriously.
But hey, here we are. It's going to be electric. So, if the Twins lose tonight, which hopefully they do, that game might be on now.
It's just probably started. I think it's 7:30.
It starts in about 10 minutes, I believe. First pitch is about 10 minutes. So yeah, you'll have that. We as always on these Thursday shows, we'll get you out of here before Thursday night football as well. The Cowboys and Giants. I know that's not an enticing matchup for everyone, but honestly, with the struggles Dallas has had, I am And as a proud Malik Neighbors fantasy owner, I will be watching. Yeah.
Is the Tigers White Sox in Detroit too? Or
Yes.
is that in Chicago?
Yeah,
Is
that's
it?
in
Okay,
that's in
nice.
Detroit.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice.
like at this point, you would need the Tigers, like for them not to make the playoffs. You need the Tigers to lose out, and somehow the Twins to sweep Baltimore, who they're playing
Yeah.
for their final 3.
Yeah, and Detroit's playing the worst team in baseball. I'm not too
Yeah.
worried right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
But
we're getting in. This is crazy.
I want to see
Funky.
if they can think or if they can jump Kansas City. That'd be impressive. They're
That would
tied
be
right now.
impressive. Yeah, I know Kansas City keeps winning though. I think their final series, Kansas City's final series is against
somebody
the
tough.
Braves. It's
Yep.
it's against the Braves, and the Braves are fighting to keep their. I don't think they've been eliminated just yet. I think last I looked. Yeah, they're actually they are a game back of the Diamondbacks and Mets. So this is also fighting for playoff dreams for the Atlanta Braves. So great. So we get, Twins have to play, someone who's fighting for the first wild card seed in the Orioles, and the Royals have to play a team who's fighting to stay alive in the NL wild card race, and the Tigers get the White Sox. Everything's coming up baseball, cats. And Lions are going there. I think, who did I just see there? J-Mo?
Yep,
Was he at the
J-Mo was
game?
there last
Yeah,
night.
J-Mo was there today. Yeah.
Yep.
One of the benefits
White hot.
one of the benefits of having all 4 teams in the same area of downtown now, you get these kind of crossover events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and J-Mo, out of all the Lions athletes, I see J-Mo at every sporting event. I've
Yeah.
seen it. Tigers games, Pistons, Red Wings. He definitely embraces the city, which I
Coney
really
Islands.
Detroit
does
City.
love
I
Coney
mean, we
Islands.
did see Lions at Detroit City FC as well. They're everywhere.
J-Mo is outside for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and as someone putting in chat, F the Oakland owner. I feel kind of sad today watching the Athletics. I thought, I was thinking about this, that there was a alternate history where Detroit, during the bankruptcy, could have lost a lot of its teams, probably in the same way that Oakland just did. I want people to appreciate this. Oakland lost 3 teams in 5 years.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
I didn't know Golden State was in Oakland.
It was in Oakland, yeah, and then they moved to
Did not
San
know that.
Francisco, yeah.
Huh.
Which is really tough considering they were not a ticket for a very long time, and Oakland still showed out for them. And then, the Raiders then moved. I think the Raiders were the first to... No, Oakland...
They were close.
I
They
think
were close to each
Raiders
other,
were the first to move, and then I think the Warriors then moved to the Chase Center. And then, the Oakland Athletics just played their final game, got a win. And I was watching, their NBC team just, crying. It's just, it's tough, man. I've never seen anything
They're
like
at
it
the
in
Vegas
sports.
too, right?
That's their hope.
Oh, they don't have a plan?
They don't have a plan, and they're going to be playing in Sacramento for a while. And the Vegas plan for the A's keeps getting holes punched in it.
Got you.
But let me read some of these alerts here. Sorry for all the baseball talk. I know sometimes it's football and Lions, but hey, we're just, we're happy for the Tigers. We're happy for the Tigers. It's really, it's October. It's September/October in the D, instead of April in the D.
April in the D.
Yeah, we're gonna have October in the D. So, Dylan Hubber, thank you for resubscribing on Twitch for 32 months. He sends in Big Jerry, let's effing go. Nick the Greek.
What
I'm sorry. I missed one. I missed a few. I'm starting in the middle. Let me go back a little bit here. My apologies. For Lions Forest resubscribed for 47 months. No decaf. Don't know who that is. Has been with us for 43 months. Nick the Greek resubscribed. 46 months total now. Chris, please change your diet and lifestyle before it's too late. More leafy greens and exercise. Less late night Wendy's and furry encounters. I don't like this track you found, Nick the Greek, and I'm going to crush it before too long. I eat plenty of leafy greens. RGA 418 cheered with a bit saying go loins. Thank you. Dylan Hubber, 32 months, so we mentioned his message. Nick the Greek then also cheered another 100 bits saying, Matt Patricia's wee govy decimated flapjack. Okay. Lost Oceans, thank you for 43 months with us. We have some genuinely loyal people, and I am always blown away by it. Cattle Snacks, 32 months total, 27 months in a row with Go Tigers. And HSW 950210, 2 months, thank you, and says, hey, fellas, I got my PhD this week. Go Loins. Congratulations,
Hey, congrats. That's awesome.
HSW. That is amazing.
PhD in what, man? Tell us.
Yeah. If you don't mind
That's
sharing,
so cool.
that is. I'm always excited for that. I think people know my path that I took getting back from Masters, and I'd like one day to maybe think about a PhD, but that's a lot of work. It's a hell of a lot of work. Soil ecology. All right.
Oh, man.
I love some land grant stuff. I love some ag stuff.
That's cool, man. Congratulations.
That's amazing. We celebrate all victories here.
Doctor.
Let's see here. Oktoberfest beer, says here Johnny. Here's Johnny in the YouTube chat. We are live on YouTube. I keep up with over there as best I can. It is Oktoberfest. It is start. I'm going to have to get some good beer at some point. I'm not much of a beer drinker anymore, but I did have nice Sapporo the other night.
I like Slappy 313's comment. It's very like John Madden-esque. It's just simply Lions will score more points than the Seahawks. I like that. Concise, straight to the point. I'll take it. I'll take it, Slappy.
Yeah. No, it was so tough, Chris. Don't do it. I guess my big thing is I would go into massive debt, I'm sure. Chris, you going to make it out to Lions Bar in Silver Lake at some point this year? I did not realize there was a Lions Bar in Silver Lake. I am in kind of the western end of the San Fernando Valley up near like Topanga. So that is a bit away. However, I do have a cousin who lives in Pasadena. Silver Lake is not hard for me to get to. That sounds like something we're going to... Trevor Wood, you'll have to, if you are on Twitter at all, if you can reach out to me, I am interested in this. I haven't been out there at some point. I'll have to go find the Lions Bar and look this up. But it sounds like something I would love to do, especially if there's kind of a later night game where I know I won't have to podcast that same night. Probably can't do it for Monday night, but this Monday night, but Drugstore Cowboy and then Tavern on Main in Santa Monica. Santa Monica is a little easier for me to get to. Drugstore Cowboy Bar. Okay. All right. Yeah. We can figure this out. Yeah. No, I hate to be a stranger around here. It's usually if it's like a day game, I'm usually working at Fox Sports Radio. And then, depending on the day, usually I'm here. But, I mean, I don't have any writing obligations anymore. So, that NBC night game, what is that? At Texans on the 10th. That might have to be a leave work and scream over to there and get drunk.
That sounds like a good idea for you. That's
Yeah.
a Sunday night game then, huh? The Texans?
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep track
Yeah.
of the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got
Like you said, we got that.
Yeah.
We got that brutal stretch, man. That it's like the Colts, and then the Bears on a Thursday, and then the Packers on a Thursday.
Yeah, I might have to try the Santa Monica bar as well for the Tavern on Main. I'll have to try that. I used to go to the Promenade all the time, so I might have to try that. I think last time I went to a sports bar in Santa Monica, it was like a Boston bar, but I'll have to try the Tavern on Main, and maybe I can do that for one of the Thursday games or something. But yeah, definitely. Thank you, Trevor, for both of those. I'll let people know on the POD cast where I'm going to be for those games when we get to those weeks. I think that's a fantastic idea. Get me out and stop being a bit of a hobo monk saving all my money. All right.
Be a man of the people.
Yeah, I'm really not much of one. More like
It can be your own Lions watch party.
I am like I was going to say, yeah. I'm more like the sports Franciscan. I am like in a cloistered monastery up here. I actually knew a guy. I remember interviewing a guy when I ran a college football podcast. He was actually in training to be a Jesuit priest. And he was at the time serving a community in West Virginia. So we had him on because he used to write a lot about and would work into his sermons quite a bit about Mountaineers football.
Interesting.
It was one of the cooler people I've had on. Also, he was drinking like whiskey the entire time too. So a younger priest sort of man, but always like a good. I mean, I think I've said this before. I went to a high school run by Jesuits, so I am always impressed with the Society of Jesus and the oddballs they attract.
There's a monastery on my street, on my block, which was very surprising when I moved to see a monk coming. And I'm looking, and it's two houses back to back on two streets, but it's a monastery, and then it's a restaurant called the Royal Eagle, which is like they're only open once a month. It's like a whole thing.
Oh,
I was
wow.
shocked to see it though. But yeah, so there is a monastery on my block, which was a nice little surprise.
Yeah, that's the life. All right,
Yeah.
we should get back into it. Let's get on to the second because I did promise everyone we get out of here. It's first pitch already for the Twins game, and I'm sure some people want to keep an eye on that. But we also want to get out of here before Thursday Night Football because I want to watch that and make some of my poke. I've noticed these NFL games are going so quick, by the way. I went out like halftime Sunday Night Football, picked up some Taco Bell. When I came back, the third quarter was already done.
Yeah, they're moving.
Yeah.
Obviously, baseball too with the pitch count.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I don't
clock
mind
and
it
everything.
because college football has gone the opposite way, and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these games are like 4 hours, and I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah, no, I like it too.
Anyway. Saddling up. Welcome back to the POD per view as we get you ready for Monday Night Football and all the rowdy friends as we talk about what exactly Detroit has to do to win this game. We move over to matchups because we always like some good matchups in this. I'm going to talk about the O-line in a second. I want to jump right in. Lions went ahead and signed Tim Patrick to the full 53-man roster this past week. Much to great fanfare, I know, from some fans who've been keeping an eye on the story of Tim Patrick, who was cut by the Denver Broncos, who was once upon a time a fairly productive receiver and something of a talent, 30 years old and a longtime veteran of the NFL. And the Detroit Lions, to be fair, have been looking for someone to replace Josh Reynolds. I think through the first few games it's been apparent that there is, certainly when you look at the box score, that there seems to be a lack of breadth when it comes to spreading the ball around. Lions are kind of getting a little bit towards looking for St. Brown, looking for Laporta as the last game. J-Mo kind of took a step back in the Cardinals game, which leaves them with St. Brown and their tight end targets. No one really who can really be that. I mean, we haven't really seen Khalif Raymond get going, or J-Mo, if he can't get open, is being held quite down pretty well. It's been a need for someone to fill that Reynolds type role. So Brandon, how are we? And I know that Allen Robinson was also signed to the practice squad, I believe today.
He was called up today, yeah.
Called up today. So, those are two interesting depth pieces, both NFL veterans. What do you see? Is this depth something they really need to get going?
Yeah, I think it would kind of bring a new wrinkle to the offense, give them some big bodies out there. Obviously, Tim Patrick's been on the team for a few weeks, called up the last two. Now with Allen Robinson on the 53, I think that's going to give him more involved in the offense. He's not going to get too many snaps. But I still think at least having the two big bodies out there, if you can have one play where it's Allen Robinson and Tim Patrick both on the field, that'd be probably pretty interesting to see. But overall, I think adding Robinson also gives him some more depth that doesn't have to put a lot of pressure on Khalif to go ahead and step up to the plate. Someone else can do something. I just really miss, and I hope Allen Robinson, Tim Patrick can be this kind of guy. I know we talk all the time about Josh Reynolds, but I really miss Anquan Bolden just being a safety guard for third downs. You need a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. Just have him run a quick slant. Someone like that and Tim Patrick, Allen Robinson, either one of those can kind of do those, just short little yardage. We don't need, the big plays out of them, just something that they can contribute. That would be a big boost to this offense, especially if Laporta does miss time or if he's limited on snap counts. They're going to need somebody else to kind of step up to the plate.
Man, Anquan Bolding, I forgot he was on our team. I think he had like 8 touchdowns or something.
He had a very
so
productive.
good.
That was like very productive. Was that 2016, I believe?
Something like that.
Something. Yeah,
Kinda in that range.
I thought he had a great season. I was thinking that's like for those third downs as always was St. Brown, but it's definitely true, Jerry, that St. Brown's getting covered a hell of a lot more this year in versus years past.
Yeah, they're dialed in on him. I think Patrick is going to be the one between the two, him and Robinson, that I'm kind of more hopeful for. His hands look good. He's been solid in the few targets he's gotten. He's been able to bring it in. I know there's a lot of things to me that trends toward he'll be a better contributor as the season progresses. Jared Goff, he typically needs some time to kind of get a rhythm with receivers. We saw it with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're seeing it with J-Mo. As evidence is when Josh Reynolds came in, they kind of clicked instantly because they had time with the Rams. And then obviously you got Tim Patrick's injury. He's going to get healthier and healthier, probably more confident in his lower body as the season goes on, getting comfortable with the offense. We need it though, because I feel like J-Mo should not be a guy that gets like 8, 9 targets a game. Less is more with him. He's a special player, but he's not someone that, you want to catch 100 balls. He's more of a, when he gets the ball, he's a home run threat. So we got to spread this out a little bit. So far, Gibbs, maybe some of us was thinking, hey, Gibbs is going to assume, however many targets that we're losing with Josh Reynolds. That isn't quite there yet. Maybe it will be. So, yeah, a guy like Tim Patrick, for me, is the one I'm looking at, and I think he's going to get better and better as the weeks progress.
Well, you mentioned Gibbs. He is tied, I believe, for like second most catches on the team right now. And that's not counting the fact that I think the hook and ladder did not count as a catch for him.
It didn't. That was kind
So
of
like
cool stat.
somehow, 0 receptions for 20 yards and a touchdown last game, and the box score is a strange oddity out there. You're right. I quibble a little bit with the JMO comp, just mostly because I've seen him in the first 2 games being used in unique ways as well, including being used in a run game too. Like there's definitely more ways to use Jamison Williams. I think he was just, particularly shut down as the Lions went to a different approach in the past game. I think they'll want to challenge these corners at least at one point here. But Brandon, I think the big question is keeping Goff safe. I think that especially in the Tampa Bay game, we saw what happened when the Tampa Bay pressure got to Goff, where he started to run through his progressions a lot faster, started to make mistakes, and he made a couple of mistakes in the Arizona game as well. The pick 6 one, it gets wiped out, but I think that's not even on him. That was more just half the team was giving up on the play too. But he did also throw one to absolutely no one on the interception. They got taken down. So it's a matter of making sure that Goff stays comfortable and really trying to find his zen that he really had last year. So down Frank Ragnow, who's the most important part of the O-line right now when you look at keeping Jared Goff safe in pass protection?
Well, when you think of pass protection, you always think of the left tackle, and that's going to be Taylor Decker. And Decker didn't, in my opinion, didn't really have that strong of a game last week either. He was kind of struggling. He's starting to show some signs of age. So I would say Taylor Decker is going to be the most important because we all know Penei Sewell is arguably one of the best tackles in the NFL. You could even argue he's better than Trent Williams. But when it comes to the most important of keeping your quarterback upright, it's left tackle, it's Taylor Decker. He's got to be the one that's going to go ahead and protect Goff at all costs. Obviously, the interior is going to be weak, so that Seattle's probably going to attack that more. But I'm more worried about at left tackle to make sure if they're going to get around the edge and try and get to Goff. Do they have if Skipper's missing time? Do they have someone else like Brock Wright come up and next to Decker and chip somebody off? or Chip on the other side of Sewell. Either way, it's definitely going to be at the left tackle position, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like someone's got to handle Jerron Reed. So
Yep.
that's kind of the big thing. Although, for how they play too, again, like it's a matter of who's going to be healthy of their linebackers, who's picking up Leonard Williams when he comes in. It's going to be a bit of an ask, and I think a lot of that for me comes back to the interior of this line, though. And I think Kevin Zeitler just this is his time. You need a little bit more veteran leadership now, especially with your other guard being, a guy who keeps stepping up in spots. But you really need Zeitler to really settle in and really protect his side, I think.
Yeah, and we could take a page from Sean McVay. They had some offensive line depth issues, and so they got the ball out quick against us. They didn't waste a lot of time because they knew, they were on their second and third backups. So quick hitters, that's where Amon-Ra St. Brown, comes into play. Whoever is at tight end. JMO needs more time typically with the longer throws, but we can use him in some shorter things, some slants and different things like that. And also, we may have to design things where to me, I might cater toward the right side, whether that's some rollouts to the right. We just got to get creative. So I think Ben Johnson, who to me, bravo, he did a good job last week with that scheme, kind of altering things. I think he's going to have to get creative, get the ball out a little bit quicker, roll out to the right, and then I'm sure we'll talk about the running backs a little bit later. We're going to have to rely heavily on them again like we did last week.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is relying on the ground game. Like to keep anything balanced is absolutely critical. I don't know if they're going to get. Did we figure out if they're going to get Kenneth Walker back, Brandon? I apologize. I should have probably.
Yeah, they're most likely going to get him back.
So they'll have him back. Yeah.
Last week.
They'll have him back. Zach Charbonnet had a better game against the Dolphins, but has not terribly been productive. Wasn't terribly productive in that game against the Patriots. Kenneth Walker, of course, in his first game had like over 100 yards on 20 carries against the Denver Broncos. But again, the Lions like to stop the run and they want to keep this team one-dimensional, which then brings us to the question of Geno Smith. The Lions is part of how they pass rush and how they deal with zone coverage. We talked about this on PODcast. The man coverage, really has times where they have been struggling to take care of running quarterbacks. They did kind of shut down Kyler Murray and stopped him from scrambling. Geno Smith, however, feels like something quite a bit different when it comes to what he's going to do now. I don't think he really ran at all on the Dolphins, and if I'm trying to remember, he hasn't really run much in these first three games, Jerry, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like with Geno, it's like he does run occasionally, but it's like when he plays us, then he becomes like this exceptional scrambler.
Yeah, he's just
an okay. He's like an okay scrambler,
yeah.
Normally, but it's something about us. Maybe it's a scheme. Maybe it's something that they saw. Again, this is when Pete Carroll was there, where, he's effective on the ground against us more than I've ever seen him. And, we've watched Geno enough to kind of diagnose what his skill set is. So that's still an obvious threat for us. Like you said, we did good against Kyler Murray, but I think we will say that is an area because of our scheme that we do allow some of those lanes. So we got to look out for that. And then two, last week we deployed Branch a little bit to kind of mitigate that. Are we going to, use that resource against Geno? I don't know, but it could, it could bite us too in the butt. So something to look out for. It's always a threat with this defense until they have like a long stint of like, hey, they're stopping, the scramble from the quarterback.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how Branch, if he clears concussion protocol in time for this game as well, which I know he was limited on Thursday, so that's always a healthy sign that he could be coming back. But there's no doubt this duo, this safety pair that the Lions have with Branch and Kirby Joseph, probably their strong suit right now on the defense. And ultimately what you need, and especially what you're going to need as you want to apply more pressure to Geno Smith and just force him to make mistakes, shut down the ground game, and keep everything one-dimensional.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to keeping Geno Smith contained, I'm not too worried about the speed Obviously, he's 34. He's not as fast as he used to be. So I don't know if I would really want to put a safety on him. He could probably do more of a linebacker and get away with it. But for him, he's super tough and he's hard to get down. I remember last year it took multiple times. He kept running further back and back, and we finally got him in like the late fourth quarter. Anzalone got him for a big sack. And I just remember just screaming, just being like, just get him down. And he just kept avoiding. He was like the Justin Fields that one time last year. He's just tough to get down. So when Detroit has their opportunity to get at him, you can't let it really go to waste. You got to tackle him, take him down. Don't let him try and escape the pocket, anything like that. You can't waste those opportunities because I've seen that so far this year a couple times. Quarterbacks just barely escape our grasp, and then they're able to escape or keep the play alive. Can't do that against Geno.
All right, Brandon, I know you have a sleeper for this game, so it is time for the Nap sleeper of the week. What do we got?
I'm going to go with a player that I haven't honestly heard too much about this year. It must be because he's doing well. I haven't really looked at his numbers, and I haven't really noticed him too much in the field. But it's Amik Robertson. He's going to have that difficulty in the slot with Tyler Lockett and JSN. He's not going to be covering DK at all, I don't think. But I think Amik Robertson could definitely have a big game here. Try and step up in that slot position. Try and slow down Seattle's passing game because I think they're going to have to rely on that more than the running game with Kenneth Walker coming back from injury. I don't know how much he's going to play. Charbonnet. You also have, the Lions have a good defensive line when it comes to stopping the run. So I think Amik's going to have to step up big at the cornerback position.
You got a sleeper, Jerry?
I was thinking about it. Who might be the guy, and on offense is kind of what I'm looking at. Whether Laporta plays or not, I kind of like what I saw from Brock Wright last week. They were both out there, but he had a couple of important plays, important catches. So I was kind of throwing that idea around. Brock Wright, whether Laporta plays or not, might be someone that makes some crucial third down catches, 4 first downs, and be a guy that until Tim Patrick or Allen Robinson or whoever kind of steps up, maybe he'll get more involved because he had good returns last week with an increased amount of targets.
Yeah, give me the Brock fence. That sounds fantastic. All right, final note from all of us. Things we think we know going into this game. Jerry, we'll pass it right back around to you. What do you think you know about Monday Night Football?
I'm pretty confident in this one. So Zach Charbonnet had a better game. He had like 91 yards, I believe 2 touchdowns. Then the first week, Ken Walker, he looked pretty good. He had over 100 yards. I know the Lions are not going to allow them to have that type of production because they just don't do it. And it's not dependent on who they play. It's whether it's strength versus strength. We seem to win when it comes to limiting talented running backs. James Conner got blanked. Kyron Williams, but you can go back to last year, whether it's Bijan Robinson, no matter who it is, so far, in this regime, I'll say at least the last 2 years, we're good at stopping the run. We're good at limiting talented running backs. So I think I know Zach Charbonnet, Ken Walker, whatever combination you throw, they're not going to have the same success they've had so far this year.
I like that. I would go ahead and what I think I know is the Detroit crowd's going to be loud and proud, and they're going to force 2 penalties out there. Whether it's false starts, it's they get they somehow get the defense to jump offside, anything like that. The crowd is going to have a huge impact on this game. I really think as you saw them in Arizona, it sounded like a home game out in Arizona, and that was on the road. I really believe this team's going to show up, and the crowd's going to be there, and they're going to do everything that they can to make sure that Detroit knows that they got their back, and it's going to be tough to play in Ford Field.
I think I know that when the Lions decide to match their jerseys with their pants, they have been 2-0 this year. So if I am correct, they are wearing black jerseys with black pants. So I believe that is the lineup, and if it is, I think they will be successful. I think I also know that Aiden Hutchinson is due for another day out there. This is a man who's really coming into his own, and I think even though we are losing Davenport out there, he's got another favorable matchup in a home stadium with a loud-ass crowd. I think there's going to be some confusion and chaos for him to take advantage of. I'm thinking that Aiden Hutchinson is going to rack up probably at least 2 sacks here to go through this game. And I also think that we're going to we've been David Montgomery dominant. I think this is also the kind of game where you could probably see more of Jahmyr Gibbs. And he's definitely been a lot more interested in the passing game right now. But I don't know, Gibbs still hurting and looking for the big plays that really made him electric last year, and hoping to see more out of him. So, yeah, I know I'm going with a lot there. If I'm going to have to pick just one, it'd probably be 50-50 Aiden Hutchinson and black on black.
I like it. You know, Gibbs had that big Monday night game last year against the Raiders.
Yep.
He kind of broke them in half. You know, so maybe it's something with him in Monday nights, prime time. He looked good in the playoffs for a couple of the games, so that's a good one.
All right, we're going to wrap up the purview with that. Thanks, as always, to Jerry Mallory, Brandon Knapp. Go check them out at Jerry Mallory NFL on Twitter and BNapp Blogs on Twitter. I'm Chris Perfett. Find me at Chris Perfett, Perfett on Twitter. This is a bit of a break here for the purview. We have the bye week coming up next week, so there won't be one. And I am probably indisposed for the week after that. I will talk with Jeremy, see if he's interested in leading something, but I know he has to run First Bite, so tends to for the POD Direct subscribers, which will be with a Seahawks beat writer, and that will probably be out there for Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. This one, as always, is free 99 for everyone out there, along with the POD cast, which will be coming Tuesday evening live on Twitch and YouTube to recap what happened on Monday Night Football. As always, this has been Pride of Detroit. I'm Chris Perfett, and we'll see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
All right. Always a good time.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Who's got that twin score, chat? Come on. Keep us updated.
Let's see here.
I mean, I guess I could do it too. I got a
Yeah.
phone.
My friend was ranting to me. I don't have a right now, Marlins up 1.
Beautiful.
In the bottom of the first. Twins have a runner on first, but Marlins struck early in this game.
I like it. Because, like, with baseball, I think they do the whole champagne thing. Like, I know if you win your division, they get the big celebration. But I think even for wild cards. So,
For playoffs, everything. Yeah, they know how to
Yeah.
celebrate. They know how to celebrate.
yeah, so I want that tomorrow. I want to be, I'm going to be down there, me and the missus, my nephews, and, they're going to have the fireworks going. I want to clinch tomorrow, for selfish
Yeah,
reasons.
no, I mean,
I wanna see the
absolutely.
champagne, let's do it.
Let's get the goggles out.
Yeah. Come
Go
on.
surfing. That's always great. All right.
Awesome.
I think, how long have we been live here? That's about an hour even. Yeah, ARG baseball talk. I'm sorry, man.
It's playoff
Detroit.
baseball.
Yeah, it's playoff
We're
baseball.
excited.
This is what it is. I know that NFL Lions fans, it covers the gamut, and there's a lot of people who are just into that stuff, but Detroit sports, you tie all 4 of them together, baby. It's
Well,
too
if you
bad.
want, go ahead, Chris. I was to say, if you want, we could talk Michigan USC, but I know.
No,
it might
thank
be
you.
No,
No. That game is now 2 weeks. That game is in the past now. I am no longer interested in that, and already having issues with Lincoln Riley. But I guess I will say this: I don't want to hear it from Michigan fans being like, "Welcome to the Big Ten." I don't care. That's just Utah football out there. I'm used to that. I'm used to watching that kind of shit. Yeah, no, like, I don't know. We'll see. I think USC still got plenty of life in them for this year, even though I am pissy at Lincoln Riley, as I always am at Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, they're good. I'm not too down on them. I don't know. Who's their other tough games rest of the year?
So they're playing Wisconsin this weekend, and I think
Easy.
they host Penn State
Okay.
in about 2 weeks' time, and then they end the year with Notre Dame at USC. So
Okay.
I think
So they
Michigan was their toughest opponent, I believe.
I was gonna say they don't play Ohio State or Oregon. So.
No, they go on the road from Maryland, Rutgers, at Washington, Nebraska, which could be really interesting. But again, that's in LA, and then at UCLA, who has not been good of much. So
Yeah.
probably the next toughest game is either Penn State or Notre Dame. But again, both those are in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance they can still be up there. The Trojans need to beef up their OL and DL to compete. But that's the thing. They needed to beef up their OL to compete in the Pac-12, too. There's nothing different about going to the Big Ten, and that's what I really kind of hate about this generation of we take pride in our conference, because it means jack shit. It means absolutely nothing. As I said, what Michigan played out there is what I sometimes expect every year from Utah. in the Pac-12. It's not unique. It's not different. It's bully ball, but it's bully ball I've seen before. It's not unique to the Big Ten, though. And I don't think weather's unique to the Big Ten either. Plus, most of you guys are going to be playing road games coming over to... I just mentioned how many are going to be coming over to Los Angeles. Like, this is college football. It's not the NFL. They're like, maybe Minnesota. Maybe there's like a cold snap for 1 week or something. But, like, come on.
I'm just waiting for the time for Oregon and USC, UCLA to just come over to Michigan, Ohio State when it's like November. That's what I'm excited for.
No, you guys are going to be scared. It's going to be
fun.
like Notre Dame. You're like, Big Ten's going to make sure that their teams who don't like playing in the cold either are going to be playing in Los Angeles and on the West Coast in November as much as they can. It's just like bowl games. They don't play bowl games in the North, Brandon.
But I mean, hey, Ford Field has a bowl game. Put some respect on it.
I've been to that bowl game, and I nearly died of pneumonia.
That sounds like a personal problem. But
also, it was Minnesota, Western Michigan.
Yeah, that's your
Exactly.
fault for going to that. Whatever happened to you?
No,
you
the people in charge of that game, which ties with Ford Field and the Lions, did ask us to cover that game, and I went up there, and it was like freezing rain that night.
dang.
Yeah. I have not posted the Kool-Aid recipe. I will get to it here for the bye week.
What's this Kool-Aid recipe?
Oh, it's the Kool-Aid recipe I do every year, and I've just been terribly busy and distracted and dealing with some personal matters, so I haven't had time to write. But I will get to that very soon, Birdie, I promise. If I don't have it by this coming week, you are free to harass me on Twitter.
Or you can also link to the one from last year if it's an every year thing.
No, I change the recipe every year because otherwise bars in Detroit take credit for my recipe. So I have to make sure
really?
it was like a playoff thing. I think I saw a free press where someone else made basically the recipe. I mean, it's not a hard recipe. They used my they used my most sane recipe, which was, I'm pretty sure it was like vodka lemonade with blue curacao and a couple other botanicals, like, to really, but like it's mostly that. It's blue lemonade with blue curacao, lemonade, and vodka. But I'll make a new recipe because I was like changing it up.
A little
Fair
tweaks
enough.
here and there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anywho, let's get you guys out of here. But yeah, as I was saying, like, all Detroit sports are kind of tied at the hip. So if this was happening with the Red Wings, we'd be talking about that. If it was happening with the Pistons, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
And for the most part, most people on here, it's probably a few exceptions, but hey, we're all Detroit sports fans by and large. You
I
like
think-
the Lions, you probably like, Tigers, Pistons, Wings.
If you grow up in that area, like, the only thing in question usually tends to be, are you also on board with one of the colleges?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's usually everything is like pulled together: Red Wings, Pistons, Tigers, and Lions. And just
Absolutely.
up until recently, the Lions were the most embarrassing part.
Yep. Now it's the Pistons, I would say. It's kind of bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, Tigers had a chance. I think that's what's fun about that, because Tigers had a chance to also be sad. But then we got the best part, which is like, hey, most people didn't pay attention in the summer, and now there's a playoff push.
Yep.
So, you kind of follow with all of them. Anyway, let's get you guys out of here. Monday Night Football's coming up in about 5 minutes, and I know the Twins game is on right now, and everyone wants to see if the Tigers can knock this down to magic number
lose.
1 for tomorrow. Yeah. Well, right now, going to the bottom of the second, Miami up 1 run to none. So we'll see you all guys here very soon. We'll look for this podcast on your podcast feeds here in the morning.